During deployment, he received a disturbing call. Someone had broken into his home and made it their own. The news ignited a fire of fury within him, his lungs searing with rage and his hands shaking uncontrollably. The night had already been the worst he'd faced in a decade as a Navy SEAL, marked by losses too numerous to count. All he wanted was to return home and find solace, but instead, a family member's call about the invasion of his sanctuary redirected his pain and anger, focusing it into a single, menacing resolve. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Lieutenant Jackson Hartley, a formidable Navy SEAL, had just returned from one of the toughest deployments of his career. As he neared the end of his overseas mission, an unexpected call shattered his fragile peace. He learned that squatters had occupied his childhood home, compounding his emotional turmoil with the unsettling realization that his past was now a battleground of its own. Jackson's home was his sanctuary, a refuge from the chaos of his life as a soldier. More than just bricks and wood, it represented stability and peace. When he was away on deployment, he entrusted it to a local property manager, believing it would remain untouched. So when he learned of its breach, the violation felt deeply personal. The idea of strangers intruding on his sacred space seemed like a direct affront to his role as both protector and warrior. As Jackson drove back to his hometown, his mind was a whirlwind of strategies and scenarios. He envisioned confronting the squatters, his imposing presence sending a shiver through them. Each thought was tinged with the recent pain he had endured, transforming his desire for simple eviction into a deeper need for reckoning. Jackson parked at a nearby rest stop to clear his mind. Sitting in the cab of his truck, surrounded by the tools of his trade gear that had both saved lives and delivered justice, he grappled with a deep sense of conflict. As the sun set, Jackson's truck eased into the driveway of his home, its headlights casting fleeting patterns on the familiar surroundings. The warm glow from inside and the shifting shadows on the curtains signaled that his presence was anticipated. Stepping out, Jackson's eyes narrowed as a red haze enveloped him, his heart racing with a blend of anticipation and unease. The cool evening breeze failed to soothe his simmering anger, leaving him with a sense of impending confrontation. The moment of reckoning was at hand, and he braced himself for the conflict that loomed ahead. When Jackson Hartley chose to dedicate his life to serving his country, his sole aim was to make a difference. With a lifelong dream of joining the United States Marine Corps, he was inspired by the military service that was deeply ingrained in his family. Growing up surrounded by tales of bravery and teamwork, Jack felt a strong calling to follow in the footsteps of his father and two older brothers, all of whom wore the Marine uniform with pride. His upbringing was filled with stories of honor and brotherhood, fueling his aspiration to honor the family tradition. For Jack, the path to becoming a Marine was not just a career choice but a continuation of a cherished legacy that had shaped his life from an early age. Destiny had a different plan for Jack, thanks to his uncle Mike, a towering influence who had retired from a distinguished Navy SEAL career. Recognizing Jack's exceptional physical abilities and sharp intellect, Mike believed that a career in the SEALs could better harness his potential than the Marines. One evening, as they sat together in the softly lit study, Mike carefully explained why the SEALs might be a more fitting choice for Jack. He outlined how the specialized skills required by the SEALs aligned perfectly with Jack's talents, suggesting that this path could allow him to excel in ways the Marines might not. At first, Jack was hesitant, grappling with his uncle's advice. The Navy SEALs, known for their elite and mysterious reputation, presented a path that was both intimidating and exhilarating. Uncle Mike was upfront about the intense tests and the rigorous training that lay ahead, leaving no illusions about the challenges. Despite the harsh realities, the allure of reaching the highest echelons of military service began to captivate Jack. After weeks of careful consideration, he chose to pursue SEAL training, motivated by a mix of adventure and the desire to tackle formidable challenges. The warnings about SEAL training, or BUD-S, were far from exaggerated. The initial weeks were a grueling test of both physical and mental endurance, pushing Jack to his absolute limits. With sleep deprivation, aching muscles, and a constant state of cold and dampness, he experienced hardship and struggle in ways he had never imagined. Yet, amid the unyielding Pacific waves, Jack's determination was forged anew. The SEAL's training was slowly forging a weapon out of a lump of flesh and bone. Jack was thankful. It was during these testing times that he met Eric Carlson. Eric, with a quick wit and unshakable resolve, complemented Jack's physicality and focus. Both recognized kindred spirits in each other. They struggled through each phase of training, and their bond was strengthened by shared pain and shared goals. Upon graduation, Jack and Eric were assigned to the same SEAL team. Their early missions were a mix of reconnaissance and direct action. Every operation enhanced their skills and tightened their teamwork. They learned to communicate almost silently. 3 years in, Jack bought a house, one that would later fall into the wrong hands, and Eric was there to help him move in. Jack had also been there for Eric's wedding and the birth of his children. As experience grew, so did the complexity of their missions. Jack's team was often deployed into hostile zones with minimal support. The punishing training they endured now paid off, allowing them to operate with deadly precision. Jack and his team, including Eric, were preparing for what was supposed to be their last mission before a break. The objective was clear: capture a key insurgent leader. As soon as they landed, the plan fell apart. They were ambushed from multiple directions, caught in a brutal firefight. Suddenly, a grenade landed nearby. Eric's warning gave Jack just enough time to dive for cover, but when the smoke cleared, Eric was badly wounded. Jack dragged him to safety, calling for help while firing back. As the medic worked, Jack watched Eric's pale, pain-ridden face. The sound of the approaching chopper signaled hope, but Jack knew the battle wasn't over yet. Once aboard, medics worked desperately to stabilize Eric, who was now fading in and out of consciousness. As they neared the base, his phone buzzed. It was Josie, his sister, her voice laced with urgency. "Squatters have taken over your house," she reported. The sanctuary he'd longed to return to was now occupied by strangers claiming legal rights. Jack could barely process it. Fresh from the battlefield, he was now facing a different kind of invasion, one that struck deeply and personally. But his mind was only half on the call. His focus remained on Eric, lying barely conscious, fighting for life. When the helicopter landed at the military hospital, Jack was first off following the stretcher closely. The grim expressions of the medics said everything Eric's condition was critical. Updates came slowly brief and clinical, never reassuring. His thoughts bounced between Eric's survival and the strangers living in his home. That growing dual pressure of friendship hanging by a thread and a violated personal space ignited something inside him. Leaving the hospital, Jack drove toward his house, his mind calculating the approach. He knew raw anger could backfire, but he also needed a release. As he pulled into the driveway, unfamiliar cars were scattered across it. His pulse quickened. He stepped out, walked to the front door, and slid it open. It wasn't locked. Inside, the scene was appalling. Trash everywhere. Strangers asleep on the couch, the floor, and likely upstairs, too. A quick scan told him there were at least 7 people. His military instinct kicked in, assessing threats, calculating space, mentally mapping the area. He stepped back and shut the door. Diplomacy was out of the question. This wouldn't be a negotiation. Back at his truck, he grabbed his duffel bag. Inside was the gear he thought he'd never need again, Navy SEAL tools chosen for precision, intimidation, and control. Every item had a purpose, and tonight that purpose was personal. Among the gear was more than just his service firearm. There were heavier tools, designed for high-stakes confrontations. Then he remembered something Eric had once told him: the Red Alert system. Together, they had upgraded Jack's home to a smart house. Lights, TVs, and locks were all connected to Jack's phone. Eric had even programmed a feature that could turn the house into a psychological battlefield. One push of a button, and everything would activate. TVs would blare with a custom message. Lights would flash red. Doors would lock. The intruders wouldn't know what hit them. And tonight, that button was about to be pressed. A choice song began blasting from the house's speakers, setting the tone for what was to come. Jack took 2 heavy military-grade padlocks and sealed both front and back entrances. With the house secured, he activated the Red Alert mode from his phone. Instantly, the interior bathed in ominous red light. Alarms wailed. TVs displayed the chilling message, "Get comfortable, you're not leaving here alive." Over it all, Fortunate Son blared at full volume. Inside, the squatters jolted awake, terrified and confused. Outside, Jack stood calmly in the shadows, his silhouette barely visible against the red glow. Panic gripped those inside as they ran frantically through the house. Jack knew they'd soon realize the exits were locked and that he was waiting. From the tailgate of his truck, he began assembling a massive firearm, each click of metal intentional and clearly visible through the windows. His message was unmistakable. This was not a bluff. Jack switched the system to Phase 2. The TVs now read, "Machine gun bullets can penetrate these walls," and the song shifted to Stricken by Disturbed. Then, with the weapon fully slung over his shoulder, he left the truck. The squatters saw him coming. Screams echoed from inside. Jack paused at the door, exhaled deeply, and stepped into the chaos. Red lights flickered. "Leave my house! Now!" His voice, loud and firm, cut through the noise like a command in battle. The squatters scattered, their defiance dissolved by fear. Room by room, Jack swept through with military precision. No one dared challenge him. Some begged, others cursed, but all eventually fled, stumbling out into the night. The mess was overwhelming, but the house was his again. Relief battled exhaustion. With shaking fingers, he called local authorities. The report was brief, help was on the way. As the line disconnected, silence fell over the house. He felt the hollowness of his victory. The chaos was over, but peace still felt distant. Jack remained by the door, breathing in the aftermath. He thought of Eric, still lying in that hospital bed, and prayed for good news. The battle for his home was over, but the war for his friend's life continued. There would be more pain, more work, but Jack was ready. The night had shown him the strength of his convictions and the depth of what he was willing to fight for. Morning came bright and clear, washing the home in sunlight. Jack began cleaning, step by step reclaiming his space. Midway through, his phone rang. The screen showed the military infirmary's number. The voice on the line brought news he hadn't dared hope for. Eric was stable and showing signs of improvement. Relief swept through him like a wave. The weight on his shoulders lightened. For the first time in days, Jack allowed himself to breathe.